Episode 158, How to Audit Your Brand. This Week in Weddings is a support group for wedding industry entrepreneurs.
We're the ones behind the scenes, planning and designing the event, arranging the flowers, creating the invitations, or taking the photographs for a couple's most important day ever. No pressure.
If you've been in the wedding industry for more than a minute, you know it's not all cake and confetti. Running a wedding business is hard, and it's certainly not for the faint of heart.
This Week in Weddings is where we catch up on this often crazy but amazing industry and share tips on how to be a better business owner, all while supporting each other along the way.
You're listening to This Week in Weddings with Kimberly Rhodes and Annie Roach. Hey guys, I'm Kimberly Rhodes, owner of Hitched Events.
And I'm Annie Roach, owner of 5x7 Designs.
Welcome back to the podcast. So, Annie?
Yes, I'm here.
With all of this downtime that we have in our lives, I guess it's time to think about some changes you want to make in your business.
That is true. I mean, luckily I've did that recently, but I don't know how to do. Maybe it's already time to do it again. Who knows?
That's funny. Yeah, website live for you, and now.
Oh gosh, if I have to redo this every few months, Lord Almighty, God help me.
Well, I guess every few months.
I do have time on my hands.
Not every few months, but maybe every few years. I don't know. I haven't actually done a website refresh in a couple of years now. I'd have to go back and look.
Every 37 years.
Well, better late than never.
36 years. Almost 37
years. As they say. Well, this week we are talking about how to audit your brand and how to take a hard look at what you're putting out into the world, doing some analysis.
Kimberly, I think you're really good about putting you getting analysis from peers, where I'm hesitant to have my peers look at my stuff.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I'll send it to people, but I'm like, I know what's best. I don't need to send it to Joe Schmo.
Oh, getting an outside perspective.
Yeah. But I feel like you're really good at that.
Well, that's nice of you to say. I don't know that I've had anyone look at my website though.
See, I'm not the girls that you're going out on a Saturday night and you send pictures of your dresses. I'm like, I already know what I look good at. I don't need feedback.
Oh, see, I do like feedback.
No, I know. I know what I look hot in, if I'm hot or not.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. Coming in hot with the jokes, Annie. Oh, speaking of, your comedy show was amazing.
I know, comedy in the time of coronavirus.
Oh yeah, that was my last outing, actually.
Yeah, it was fun, and I kind of did it for the podcast to kind of get me out there and hopefully make me funny. But it was hard, 8 weeks of joke writing and committing to that. It was 4 hours every Sunday. That was a big commitment.
Yeah, that is a long time, actually.
I know, but my little boy he's like, Mom, are you going to your class that makes you funny? I'm like, yes. It's I'm really glad you're going to that class because you need to be funnier. He was very brutal.
I wonder if they do one of those for kids. That'd be kind of fun, comedy for kids.
Yeah, he would love that. But yeah, he was very brutal. But he'd be like, okay, tell me a joke. I'm like, okay, it doesn't work that way. Stand-up doesn't work that way. You got to build up on it, dude.
Wow, you did great.
Aw, thanks. Hopefully I will. I got it's been videoed, so maybe I might post a little.
I think you should do.
Facebook.
Is there a class 2? If that was comedy 101, is there a 201?
There is a 201, and maybe after social distancing, I'll take that.
Yeah.
See, I mean, I don't know if I ever want to be a career in stand-up, but at least it might. I don't know. Who knows?
Everyone's pivoting right now, Annie.
Yeah, I might pivot, and who
that
knows? Could
be your pivot.
A Walmart greeter comedian. Who knows?
I feel like the world is your oyster. Well, to get us back on topic, we are talking about auditing your brand with our guest, Kaleigh Wiese. And Kaleigh is not only a branding educator, but I know pre-coronavirus, she traveled all over talking to wedding pros about their brands.
Yeah, no, I didn't even think about that. There's, no more speaking gigs.
Yeah. Well, this is a speaking gig. We got
So
her, and we're
everybody
excited.
pivot, and listen to podcasts.
There you
Pivot.
go. Well, Kaleigh Wiese is an endless creator, visual branding educator, entrepreneur, and public speaker. She has worked her entire career helping creatives find their visual voice. She founded Méldeen in 2008, a luxury branding and paper goods company focused on designing unique touchpoints throughout the wedding experience. Label by Méldeen launched in 2018 with resources and services to help event pros and creatives find their brand voice and visually share their company's uniqueness.
Through her work in the industry, she has been featured in the Huffington Post, Entrepreneur.com, Fortune.com, Martha Stewart Weddings, Grace Ormonde, and has shared trends at Wedding MBA, WIPA, ILEA, and other niche creative workshops across the country, offering tips for growing your business through visual marketing. In 2020, she has launched her fourth-year partnership with WeddingPro, focusing on sharing her message of strategic brand techniques across the country. When she's not on the go, you can find her at home in Austin, Texas, experimenting in the kitchen with a book in her hand or boating with her husband, Michael, and their two rescue pups, Charlie and Jack.
Let's welcome to the show Kaleigh Wiese.
Welcome to the show, Kaleigh. We're so excited to have you.
Yay!
I'm so excited to be here.
We're excited to have you. Okay, before we talk about auditing your brand, which we know you are an expert at and helping people do that, tell us a little bit about your backstory, how you got started in our crazy wedding world.
Yes, absolutely. So if you have the chance to talk to me one-on-one, I can tell you more about my young career start, but I was definitely born as an entrepreneur. In third grade, I got a book that was how to be a leader and how to be an entrepreneur. My mom was like, okay, so we're homeschooling you. So I actually went to college when I was 15 with the desire to just help other entrepreneurs. I know, it's crazy.
What? I didn't know this.
I need to go back
You're like
to that.
Doogie Howser.
So my parents have always I'm the oldest of six, have encouraged all of our talents and gifts and like where we wanted to pursue our lives. They've just encouraged us. And so for me, it was like I wanted to help other businesses and I didn't know what capacity that looked like. I've always been very right brain, left brain. So a lot of my hobbies have been creative and like just my visual eye of like wanting to style something. And so when I went to college, I was like, what am I going to do? I'm obviously going to get have something in business. And through that guidance counselor, they were like, well, why don't you get into like graphic design? Like you can help with marketing, you can have that creative side and still have like the statistical, very purposeful, very data driven component of that. And so I, at the time, was actually freelancing for a small creative business who did like little workshops. And this was back in 2002 probably, or even earlier. And I was helping them create like their brand for the event. So like the tickets, what were the colors that they were going to be using. And so I was like, oh, this makes sense. Like I can help brand businesses in brand events. And so I started branding small creative businesses. So this would be like jewelry makers, interior designers. And what I found was they were super creative in their craft, but they were awful at marketing themselves. And what I found is like marketing yourself is the most challenging thing because we're great at what we do in our craft, but we don't know how to share that with the world to obtain inquiries and get great clients. So so I started doing that. And then one of my clients in 2007 asked me to brand their wedding. And so if you were in the industry in 2007, there was no Pinterest. There was really no personalization. I got married in 2007. My wedding was black, white, red roses. It was, a country club. Like that's just what you did. And so with us starting to brand weddings, we obviously touched into the stationery component and then launched Méldeen, which was definitely more B2C instead of B2B in 2008. So through working in the wedding industry, it was like I was seeing the exact same issues with these other artisans, but happening in the wedding industry. People were really, really talented, but they were doing an awful job promoting themselves or showing their craft in a way that was appealing to the clients that they wanted to work with. So I've kind of dedicated my career now to really focusing on what is that data, how do couples shop, what is color theory, what is font psychology, and all the things that I learned through schooling and through my personal education. How can I help apply that to the wedding industry? So I mostly go around now and speak to many different segments of our wedding world about how businesses can attract the couples that they actually want to work with.
Okay, so Kaleigh, now that there's not like a lot of travel in your life,
Yes.
are you just like web chatting it up? Is that what is the new
Yeah.
normal?
Yeah,
So
what's the new wedding speaker?
Yes. So I have dedicated my last 4 years traveling. I've traveled over 40 times last year. And so my spring has definitely and summer completely cleared out, which just kind of breaks my heart because I have a lot of clients that I'm working with that I can definitely help on an ongoing basis. But to me, it's like now is the best time. And that's why I'm so happy we're having this conversation is there are so many small little things that I'm able to help share when I'm speaking to different groups that will transform who you're attracting. If you're wondering why someone is only selecting your base level package, you could make really small changes to your brand and the way that you're communicating about yourself, and you're going to start obtaining people who want to pay for that full service package.
Well, and I
Yeah.
feel like that, I mean, I know for me, I mean, no one take advice from me about branding because it took me 36 years to do it. So
Kaleigh,
I
just
am,
to catch you up, Annie just got a website for the first
Oh
time.
gosh.
But
and
it's
I've,
great.
yeah,
It's
I've been
beautiful.
doing
So creative and
invitations.
talented, though.
Yeah, I've been doing invitations for like 15 years now, so it's about time. But yeah, but I would always I know me, I would put myself at the bottom of the totem pole. I'd be like, my clients come first. I'll get to me later. I'm making money. I'm making a profit. I'm fine. I don't need a brand. I'm fine. But slowly, especially, within the last few years, I needed that brand. Even if I was getting clients word of mouth, I needed it. People like just as a validation of who I was. So I needed that. But I also, now's a good time because it's kind of, we've got some extra time. You could put yourself at the top of the totem pole and
Yes.
work on you.
And I think right now, I know I personally can relate to, we're putting out fires. There's lots of things going on, especially for wedding planners. I was just reading a thing. The average couple has 12 to 13 contracts in place. The planner is then, and they have how many contracts are they having to work alongside these different pros? So I definitely think for the next couple of weeks, it's going to be kind of wild. But going into April and May, I think, if you start a list right now of these are the things that I want to work on, and then being dedicated about setting time aside for that, I think it could be now is the time to really kind of just you're rethinking your contracts. And I think a lot of pros, what I'm seeing their response is like, I'm going to have to change dynamics in my business. I'm either going to have to attract a different type of clientele than I currently was, or how can I spread a little wider to bring in more income? And so those are the new questions that really make changes in how you actually need to present yourself. And so now's a great time to be thinking about it.
It's funny because I feel like, Kimberly, whenever we get stationery people or people on the show that used to do stationery, like it's like everyone's pivoted and done something different. Where I'm still trucking, doing invitations. Here I am.
Méldeen
and a
still,
podcast.
and I still love the creative outlet of Méldeen for the paper and materials. And we're definitely known for using unusual materials. Last year we did one that was hand stamped ceramic. And so it's definitely a creative outlet for me for sure that I've kept alive, because I think, we all have different desires, and especially Kimberly and both of you and Annie, you both have been in this industry for a long time, that I think that's kind of the next phase of after you've been in this industry over 10 years. It's like, how can you help the next generation also?
Yeah, love it.
Keep on trucking.
So, okay, let's go kind of to the basics, Kaleigh, of auditing your brand. Like, what does that even mean? Like, we're like auditing your brand,
Well,
but like,
what is a brand really? I think that's our first
oh
question,
gosh,
Kimberly.
Annie's going
Because
even
well, I mean,
earlier.
like, is it just your website and your logo, or is it like your social media presence?
Yeah.
Is it your hair? Is it your earrings? Like, is it your weave? Like, what is it? Like,
so foundationally, your brand is what other people say it is. Like, that's specific. So when you think about it like that, when you are not in the room representing yourself, how are people talking about you? Are they going to say you're formal? Are they going to say you're relaxed? Are they going to say that you're put together? Are you going to say that you're detailed? What is the language that they're using? And that kind of spans no matter what industry you're in. So when you think about how people are communicating about you and making sure that you have the visuals to support how you want to be treated and respected. So let's just say that if you are a DJ and you are more of an MC and you're a little bit more relaxed and you're very personable, having a red and orange graffiti logo is not sending the message when you're
aggressive.
not there. Yes, exactly. And so there's different components of reflecting who your brand is, who you are and who your business is. But also to pair with that is also, how are you dressing? How are you answering the phone? When you have a logo or you're using colors on your website or you're communicating on your website, is that language in a way that you actually speak? Hopefully. And so that's one way to do an audit, is to really make sure that the reviews that are coming in, the way people are talking about you, is being reflected in the way that you're representing yourself to attract the inquiries that are looking for those same qualities.
Yeah.
That drives me crazy too, is not to toot my own horn that I got all my shit together, but at least I tried, at least pretend. But like people on Facebook, like I'll see business owners like go in and just like spout out like all this like oh my gosh, this has happened, and like just like acted like a chicken with head cut off. And I'm like, you're reflecting your business and you're spouting all of this. And I know you. I know this person, I know you're running a business, but like if a client saw this, I would not trust you
It comes
to
across
hire
chaotic.
you with the content that you're putting out on social media.
Yeah, it comes across chaotic, which then for someone who's looking for someone to be a leader as the professional that they're hiring, that does not align.
Yeah.
And so it is part of your brand and how making sure that how you're communicating. And that doesn't mean putting a shell up and being someone who you're not. I think, I talk about there's two different ways of branding yourself, and we're kind of getting a little off topic, but there's one way to brand for like your BFF.
I do that.
And really connecting with them. But there is also another approach to branding, which we'll have to do a follow-up podcast, but there's another way to brand to attract maybe that next tier of client, that more luxury client that you personally can't relate to. But that's a whole separate conversation.
Interesting. Okay, so auditing our brand. Now we know brand is like kind of everything, what people say about you behind your back. I feel like one of the challenges for me at least, is being able to step back enough. Because like, for those of us who have businesses, like our businesses are our babies. Like we are so in it. And like, we love everything about it for the most part. But it's like taking an objective look at it, which I'm sure that's kind of part of what the point is like taking an objective look in order to be able to see like the big picture.
And, an audit is really just like your checkup on your brand. And there's 3 different ways of doing it. Self-auditing is an excellent thing that you can do like every 90 days, or maybe when you're in a pivot of like, okay, I need to make some changes or something's not working. But kind of like you said, kind of coming away from it and being like, I seem to be getting inquiries that seem like a bad match for me. That would be a red flag that maybe you're communicating yourself in a way that doesn't align with who you are. But like you said, you're so close to it. So another thing I like to recommend is a stranger audit. And it's not like just a stranger off the street that you just tap their shoulder, but it's actually if you know that your ideal client, let's say, is a nurse or is in finance, reaching out to a friend of yours who are in those same industries and saying, hey, do you mind looking at my brand? What kind of insight would you have for how much do you think I charge for my services? What kind of services do you think that I offer? And you'll notice right away if you're on track or if there is some miscommunication. And then thirdly, you can hire someone like me or a professional brand audit where I can bring in the color theory and the font psychology. And that's kind of something to do every couple of years if you just feel like you want to refine your brand, or if you need to, you're really seeing that miss. If a lot of your inquiries are coming in and you're like, I do not know what's wrong, but I'm obviously not attracting the people that I want to work with.
Yeah. Okay. So every 90 days, like self-audit every 90 days.
I recommend it. And it sounds like a lot because that would be quarterly, but I highly recommend once you get the foundation set up, which we'll talk about, it's really just going in and doing like a check-in. It would maybe take you an hour with a glass of wine, with a coffee. You just need to ensure that your website and your social media and your web presence is being presented in a way that you even are aware of. I think a lot of times. I'm trying to
think what 90 days would be like in Annie talk, like dog years kind of. Like
Annie, now like listen. Now, okay, let's pretend. Now you've ripped off the Band-Aid. You have this new launch thing, but you can start now as like the starting point for the 90 days.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
You don't have to go to Annie of the past. Be Annie of the future.
Oh, that's
right.
good. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna get bangs, guys.
No, don't get, now is a bad time to get bangs. You're in a crisis mode worldwide. No bangs.
Yeah. And side note, I decided to like chop like 6 inches off my hair like a week ago, and now I'm like, I just want back to my old hair. I can put a ponytail. Don't make big decisions before pandemics, people.
But listen, at least you cut it now, because otherwise you're not going to be able to cut it for who knows how long. I needed to get my grays dyed, and now I can't. So, that's fine.
We're all going to be beauticians
back to the topic at hand. Kaleigh, every 90 days, do you have, like, where should one start? Is there like a good starting place for? I mean, I would assume website is first. I'm saying that with a question mark in my voice.
Foundationally, I would put together a Google sheet or an Excel document and write down, like, Google yourself. If you've not done that recently, you probably should, because there's probably links that you don't even know are out there, or people have credited you in some way. But you want to start by just Googling yourself and write down every single platform that you're on. So your website, your Instagram, your Facebook, your Wedding Wire profile, your not profile, maybe Dean Weddings did an article on you. Write down every single thing, and then put in the HTTP like URL in the second column. And so this just gives you like a good starting place. And so it also will help.
When you say Google, like, do you say Google like your business name or your name or both?
I think a combination of both is helpful, depending on if you're a solopreneur or have a team. I just think that a lot of times things get published that you don't even are aware of, or there are broken links that end up evolving that can be a bad reflection on your brand. So once you have a foundation of those things, then every 90 days, you're actually using that template to just check in on all of those elements. So let's say you did have a press feature that did feature you, and then for whatever reason that URL is broken, now you can update it on your website so that you don't have that kind of dead link impression on your actual website profile. So I definitely would start with creating that Google document, and then you can make notes on there to say like, okay, I need to update this, or this one looks good, and you can kind of keep date columns. That's a great way to do it. But then you do probably want to start with your website. So you want to check in on like, what is that first impression? So it takes 2 seconds for someone to create a first like expectation about you. And so when you land on a homepage, you want to make sure they know who you are. What is your business name? We want to make sure that the imagery is speaking to what you do. So let's say you do hair and makeup. Having a bouquet of flowers is not a good first impression. We want to see exactly the service that you provide. If you can imagine, as a couple is searching for their vendors, they're looking at a lot of different websites,
right?
And it can all end up looking the same. So I think being really clear in your messaging in those first few seconds to allow them to kind of trickle in is a good start. So you want to see how is this being represented.
And Kaleigh, as many websites as you've like seen and analyzed, I'm sure you've seen a lot of that already, like the bouquet for the hair and makeup person. Because I feel like I've seen that too, looking at other vendor websites, and I haven't really thought about it in that way. Because usually when I'm going to a vendor's website, it's like, because I want their contact information, or I'm going for something specific. So the bouquet hasn't bothered me, but I can totally see why that is not a good choice.
And let's say you work a lot with wedding planners, that you're more on that. You're, let's say, a photographer who mostly works through wedding planners. You have to consider the people who are going to your website are seeing it for the first time. So you really don't need to be afraid of, oh, they've already seen this, or this photo is an old photo. Really have in your brand toolbox 5 to 10 images that represent your work the best. And make sure that you're using those consistently, because it is all about that first impression for the person who is looking to fulfill who is their photographer, who is their florist, or who is their hair and makeup artist. You need to talk to them like it is their first time and they have no idea who you are. So location is another thing. Sometimes I'll be on someone's website when I'm doing an audit for 10 minutes and I'm like, what areas do you even serve? And I think that is a misstep in some areas. So usually location, really describing what your services are. If you are, I'll say a DJ again, and you do MC services and you do lighting and you do a photo booth, tell me that on the homepage so that I have a good idea of like, oh, okay, I don't have to search any longer. They can provide everything, that's needed for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Those are all
location
really good
is a
points.
great. I get frustrated too. Just like even like searching with a podcast, like searching people, it's like it is like I need to know where you live, so I need to know what time we're recording. Like it's some people. I do understand like in this day and age where you're like you can be global, but I do also need to know, you know, what time zone you're in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So
and you would think for most wedding services, people are looking for someone who services their market. Like
mhm.
most people aren't just like, unless you're like uber luxury, where you're like, I just want the best of whoever, and I'm going to fly in whoever from anywhere. I think for most people searching, they're looking for people who
Yeah.
service their own
And I'll give you
community.
guys a little behind the scenes. So the data is showing that couples are looking for 5 things. So when they land on a website, they're looking for location, they're looking for reviews, they're looking for recognition, they're looking for services, and they're looking for a way to contact you, or they want to see like the warmth of you saying check availability or reach out for any questions. They're looking for that ask. So those are the
Huh.
5 things that I always am looking for on people's websites because the data is showing those are the top 5 things that couples are wanting when they're
Uh-oh.
looking at a
I don't think
website
I
for the
have any
first
warmth
time.
on my website.
Warmth?
I think I'm like ice queen on my website.
Oh
Well, I mean, I think
gosh.
and that's part of that is like the human component. I think, we are living in an era with Gen Z and millennials who really want to feel connected to the pros. This is the first time they're hiring someone in the service industry. They've dreamt of having their own business in many areas. I think 70% of millennials have considered having their own business. So this is really special
Mm.
for them. They want to know why we do what we do. They want to know who is the human and what are you doing on the weekends, which we have to protect in some ways on Instagram. But I think really expressing who we are and creating, not just having that we love love. And this
Yeah.
is what we do. It cannot be robotic anymore because it will feel stale. To also nod to that, your contact forms can come across very stale. So they just
Mm.
don't know when they push submit, where is that going? Is it even going to a human? So making sure that you are asking questions that are personal. Maybe you're saying like, tell me about your first date, or asking something in there where they smile, they feel heard. And then when they push submit, it gives them some call to action or tells them I'll be contacting you in 24 hours, XOXO Kimberly. Really creating that personal first touch point where they know it's a human that they're going to be working with, not a robotic website.
Yeah. That's interesting. I have a tendency to write in a very like technical way, if that makes sense, as opposed to how I talk. I guess I kind of talk
Yeah.
technically too at some points, but like I think that is one of my biggest struggles is like making it sound like me as
Yes.
opposed
But
to
I also
like a
would say,
perfectly grammatically correct sentence.
so there's 12 brand archetypes. This is kind of like your Enneagram for your own personal self.
Mm.
There's brand personalities. So let's say at the end of the day, like you're sitting in a tub and you're like, this was so rewarding for me because I had everything organized and the couple just trusted me and I was so detailed and you knew that was a successful event because of that. Then the language on your website that is describing those kind of like very structured, like your language is coming across that way, is probably going to attract the person who's looking for someone who's
Mm.
going to have that detail. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
yeah, no, that totally makes sense.
that's kind of how it all feeds together. So I don't necessarily think that's negative in any way.
Yeah.
There maybe is areas that need to be a little more warmer just to show your personal personality. But I think if you do best being a very technical, detailed planner, then I think it's critical to show that in your language that's in a gridded way where, let's say, an engineer or an accountant who might be your ideal client is like,
Yeah.
oh, she's talking to me exactly what I want to hear.
Oh, yeah, I like that. I like it. Okay, so we are making a Google sheet
Yep. So you're making your Google sheet. You're
We are
checking,
searching ourselves.
searching yourselves, and then you're going to start at your website. So check dead links, click around like you're on the website for the first time, maybe even jot down like the first words that come to mind are whimsical or fun or formal, those kind of details, and make sure that you're just checking in on yourself. Like, is this how I want to be represented? Do I like that when I get to the bottom of the page, it asks me, do I want to learn more about the company, or should I give them an ask to reach out? Have I given them enough information to go to the contact page? So you kind of want to just with clear eyes go through that. Once you have your Google sheet together, then you're able to pass that on to a stranger audit. So let's just say a friend of yours, and say, hey, do you mind utilizing all of these links? Take a look through everything and answer a few of these questions. It's going to vary depending on who you are. But let's say if you are a planner, would you consider me full service? Would you consider me full partial service, or not day of anymore? It's
month of coordination.
And I think getting their feedback, and after looking at it, like what words are they using to describe how you're being represented? I think can be really eye-opening, and you can have them take notes in that same Google Doc, or you can provide them, something else to do. It really maybe would take them 15 to 30 minutes or so to do that.
I just happened to be on my website recently and found a broken link, and it was from basically we had posted a video of a client's wedding, and it was like a video from the videographer's like Vimeo account or their YouTube or whatever, and the video had been taken down. And who knew? Like, how would we know it got taken down? I just
And no
happened
one's
to be
gonna
like,
mention
looking at
that. I mean, no one's going to mention it, but you may have someone be like, well, their T is not crossed and their I is not dotted, and this is not the type of, that first impression could be negative for them. So I think making sure that we're on top of it. I mean, I am fully guilty. In years past, it would have been like 8 months, and I'm like, oh, I have not looked at my own website. I mean, I think we are working so much with our clients that yes, it is very challenging to take that time, but this is also an activity you can do with wine while watching TV. Like, be in a situation where maybe you're like over your lunch break, you're looking at it much like a potential new client would.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so that's like the self audit, but then you could have a stranger audit. I would assume that a stranger audit would actually maybe be really helpful with like an industry peer audit.
Yes and no. And my reason of saying no is that I find that our industry is also incredibly opinionated. So do not
in a bad way?
In a bad way. In a way in a way where it's like, we all have our own industry categories also. So stationer to stationer, it will make sense why the language we're using is what it is. It may, they're just little holes where I feel like some people are just over opinionated. So I guess making sure that you're asking someone who has your best interest in mind and is going to be looking at the details and the minutia rather than like, I just don't like that color. Like that is not going to help you. Like, because maybe you're using that color and it's not their favorite color, but it's purposeful for you. And so I think you just have to approach that really carefully. That I think it's great, but really where you need to fill in the holes is you need for the person who is not in our industry to see your website. That's what's important, because those are the type of people that we're working with every day. Like what is the language that we're using that maybe they don't have the vocabulary for, to make sure that we're breaking it down enough for them to understand what our services are.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, I definitely have a few friends that I'm like, okay, roast me. Like I just did my personal website with on a Zoom call last week with like 5 people, and I'm like, can you guys look at it and just tell me like, what do you think is not reflecting my personality as a friend? Now they're all in our industry, but I feel like that was also helpful for them to say like, oh, you wouldn't really talk like that, or, that kind of thing. So I think it is a combination of really making sure that it's an audience that you're trying to attract, that you're reaching out to do the stranger audit. But I think if you want, quick first impressions, just take them lightly from people that are in our industry.
Yeah. Are you should you be asking like competitors, like you said like me a stationer reach out to other stationers, or should these be more like peers in other cities?
I mean, I think it could be either. I think different vendor categories, like photographers, are friends with photographers.
Us stationary people are like, we could do like a rumble. Like I'm just kidding, not my competitor. Like your fears.
Yes. And I think honestly, through all of what we're going through right now with this pandemic, is that I think all industries are coming together, and there's a community that's building. Like, we're all in this together, we're all being affected. And so I think that will continue to grow in some of those vendor categories. I think sometimes people can just be guarded, about their own. They've built this for XYZ years and they don't want to give away all their secrets.
Should you be looking at your competitors' websites and kind of taking note of them?
Yes. So I think it's helpful to know what they're doing, because you have to realize that if you are a stationer and they have 5 different tabs of 5 different stationers open, they're looking at all of you side by side. Now, the negative comes in that I see very, very, very frequently is that, let's say you love and respect this other company and you start mirroring yourself to look like them. And then you get so far off track that it's not reflecting the work you do in the way that you communicate about yourself, or that mint green for a logo color is not your color, that you end up way off track. So I think I discourage the mirroring component or language mirroring component. But I do think it is important for you to know, like, how do I look against those people? If you've been in business for 15 plus years and your website is 2 pages and looks like you're a hobbyist, then you might want to add some more content, compared to someone who's been in business for 6 months and has like this really robust website, and they're young and they're hip and they know how to do it, but DIY. So I think it is important to know, but I just really encourage, don't lean into your competitor's overall aesthetic, even if you're losing business with them. Really figure out how you can strengthen your own personal brand so that, at the end of the day, when they're looking at those 4 tabs and they're like, I loved the person who had the bright blue logo, and like, that's how they're going to remember it. Or on the homepage, there was a couple that had a lot of negative space. They're getting like a photographic memory stamp. So if you look too similar, you're really not standing out at all.
Yeah. So I assume we talked a lot about the website, but I assume we kind of also need to like self-audit our like social media. Yeah.
So I will say for Facebook, so many people in the industry are not using it anymore, but
I like in the worst.
I gave up on Facebook.
Moms are still looking at it. They're still looking at it like a Yelp page. Making sure you have some reviews on there is great, but ultimately making sure that it's reflecting your same brand. So use the same avatar that you're using on Instagram. If it's a photo, if it's your logo, make sure that that's the same. And then I recommend your hero image, which is, your big image at the top. Videos work really, really well there if you have one. But for a photo, make sure it's the first photo that they're seeing on your website. So it takes 5 to 7.
I'm going to change that right now.
So it takes
I don't even know what my Facebook hero image is. That's how bad I am.
I didn't even know what a Facebook hero was.
So it takes someone 5 to 7 times to see your brand to feel connected, to reach out. So what you are doing when you have things that are mirroring each other internally, not to other people, but to yourself. Let's say that pre-engagement, they ran across your Facebook page because someone tagged you and they're like, oh, cool, I'll have to bookmark them and look at them later. And then post-engagement, they land on your website and they're like, oh my gosh, I've seen this company before. It's going to create that reaction where they're probably not going to continue to their search to look for someone else. So having that similarity on all of the platforms can be really critical in getting that first inquiry. So on your Facebook, I personally think it's okay if you don't have the time to just share the content that you're putting on Instagram. The same people, you have 2 different audiences there. And so for me, as long as it looks active and your business looks alive on Facebook, I think you're doing a great job. And then we know with Instagram, it's like the algorithms change like every month. So currently, I heard a stat that was like, if you're getting 3% of engagement on your photos, you had like a phenomenal account. Like if you're getting 1%, like you have a good account. So the numbers just don't matter anymore. People are scrolling, they're not interacting as much. And so think about it as a mini portfolio, like go through when you're doing your self audits and just be like, okay, this no longer represents the work that I want to do, and archive it. So make sure the things that are up there, are your best work and showing things that you want to continue to sell and continue to level yourself up with. A little tip, anything with text on it. So let's say you posted a image that said Happy Thanksgiving on it or something like that. Instagram thinks is an ad, and so it will suppress your count. So
Oh.
sometimes it makes sense. Let's say that you are a bridal salon and you're saying, hey, we're having a trunk sale or whatever. It makes sense to have a graphic that has imagery, but after the event, archive it because it's doing your page a disservice.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So like our Instagram quotes that are all text. Is
I
that
think,
hurting us?
okay, yes. So let's talk about that for a moment. So I think from a tech perspective of from where you are, I don't think it's negative. I think you
Okay,
need to
good.
realize that it's probably is affecting your account, that I would make sure that your ratio of text images and photo images are in good proportion.
Oh, they're
Oh,
not in
Annie,
good
we need to take,
proportion.
they're not at all. Annie, we need to take more pictures of ourselves in our closets right
And
now.
honestly, I think
Post it to the gram.
having a photo of the speaker creates great self-awareness because people are familiar with faces. They may not know their names, but you
Yeah.
definitely utilize the swipe right. So you could say like, hey,
Mm.
this is X, Y, and Z, and swipe right for one of her tips. And then you can incorporate that. With that interactiveness on that post, you're going to then boost engagement because people are spending longer on that post.
Well, and even our graphics that have people's faces have text on top of their faces. So that's probably not helping either.
I would probably work away from that
Kaleigh?
from an
Oh,
We're
algorithm.
never we're
man.
never gonna get to Kim Kardashian status now, guys.
Oh,
But also,
man.
like, don't be hard on yourself. I mean, I think we all are like micro analyzing, ourselves, and it's like start today or start tomorrow and know with the data that you know. And once your page is more robust with, I guess, posts that you know are working better, then you can go back and start archiving or changing or refreshing or promoting those posts or promoting those old podcasts again and just kind of going through more of a cycle. But on
Yeah.
Instagram, another thing I see, we talked about showing your locations and areas you serve. On Instagram, it's even more of a worldwide, large platform. And so a
Yeah.
couple who is looking for a vendor, and I want to say like 75% of couples are using their phones for wedding planning, and 42% of them are finding their vendors on Instagram. So
Yeah.
it's very high, but if you think about it, like you can't search Dallas photographer on necessarily on Instagram. And so making sure that as they're looking at their friends who have posts, who have tags, who, all of that tree branches is like I like to talk about them. Like all of that is not, they may find a photographer they love, but then they're questioning, where do you serve? And so I think if you
Yeah.
are someone who has a, Texas only or California only, make sure that you're listing like that specific area that you serve.
Yeah. Or even like tagging the venues that you're at, because I know people look at that or like, oh, I saw that you were at this venue.
Yes,
Um,
exactly. And that's the
kind of
whole just
interesting.
attach. So I said the tree. So I like to say our accounts are like the trunk of a tree, and all of the tagging that we're able to do is like the branches. So all of those branches you're able to feed back into the trunk of the tree. So absolutely, the more that you can tag, and maybe that's something you look at when you're doing your audit, like, do I have all of the location tags in place? Have I utilized tagging every single vendor that was involved in every wedding? Those tags are how people find us because, when you already have trust with a vendor, you're going to see who else they're working with,
Yeah.
which helps feedback to you to get inquiries.
Yeah. I was saying at a podcast episode a few weeks back or a few months back, I don't even know, that I had a client or she was a potential client at the time, but she was saying something about like, oh, I see that you work with this florist a lot. And I was like, oh, do you? Huh. So they like are
They're
looking at those things.
stocking.
Like what connections? Yeah. Yeah. Like what connections do you have? And it was more noticeable to her than I had given like a potential person credit for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that they're doing more of that than we realize by the time they reach out to us. They've already checked us out on Instagram or websites. They've Google searched us to see, like, have you been featured? Recognition is a huge thing. So if you have been a part of a wedding that has had any kind of, print or online, promotion, it can be really great to make sure that you're listing those things or communicating about them because every couple, almost every couple, okay, let's say 99% want to be featured. So they want to know
Yeah.
that you're getting weddings that are being featured.
Yeah. I mean, this is actually, you've given me a lot to think about because I feel like there's a few things, just takeaways that I'm like, oh, I definitely need to do that. I need to go add this on my website. I need to go back and reread this. I mean, this is just like practical things that we can all be doing. And especially when it's like, we have a little bit of downtime.
Yes. And I
A
would
little
say,
bit of downtime.
with the COVID-19 stuff, I am seeing some panic where people are like, what other services can I provide? My suggestion would be don't jump to that.
Mm.
If you are a DJ and you're not currently offering lighting services, now is not the time to add lighting services. Like, really think about how you can refine your existing
Now I'm doing
services.
landscaping. Like,
Yes. And I think we all are having that gut reaction because, our income is all on the table at this point for what we planned for the spring and summer. But really look at what were the services that you love doing, that you have been providing. Are you communicating about them clearly? Are you showing your uniqueness? Are you sharing your passion through the various profiles? And then really looking at, okay, if I wanted to make that move, how does it change what I'm currently doing? And if you're going off in like a full right arm in a different direction, you may be doing yourself a disservice because now that you've laid a platform for your business, you're known for these things, and it can be very confusing to your collaborators and to potential couples who are referrals and so forth, that I would really just hunker down and make what you do better, stronger, communicating clearer, and really embrace that instead of, jumping into a whole nother portion of our industry.
Yeah, that's good advice,
that is good
Kaleigh.
advice.
It's good. I feel like that is a good thing to wrap up with, but I want to make sure we didn't skip anything that you needed us to hear.
Yeah. I mean, I have some free resources like the color guide. We didn't talk a lot about color on this podcast, but color is super impactful. Like 90% of people align themselves with businesses where they connect with that color. And so
What does pink mean? Because Kimberly and I both have pink in our logos.
Yeah. So pink is definitely like warm, lovey, girly, cutesy, sweet. So there's that. But I think
Totally me in a nutshell.
when you pair it, but you can also
No.
pair that with, let's say, white, which is going to be very like the sacrament of marriage. It's going to be very serious. It's going to be like refined, clean. Or you might pair that with a gold, which would be like opulence,
That's me.
excellence. It's got like a
Excellence.
grandeur about it. Versus if you go in, let's say, a green direction, your green is going to be very nurturing.
Then
and
you're basically
warm.
Lily Pulitzer.
Yeah. Yes. And then blue is going to be very like detailed and organized. And so like think of like our medical society mostly uses blue. A lot of financial institutions use blue. And
It's very calming, right? Isn't it?
It's very calming. Yes, but it's very structured. It's very organized. And
very
so
bank. I feel like a lot of banks are blue.
Banks are blue. Yeah. The serious ones. But I think a lot of times I see gold misused. I see pink misused, and only because they're like, we're weddings, we're gold. And if you're a boho florist who's doing very organic, like airy, soft things, that gold looks like you should be in a ballroom and not,
I always tell my clients, like,
countryside.
when you pick gold, like you get hunker down to spend a lot of money because gold it's going to be expensive to print metallic. So
so
you
make
better be
sure
rich.
So do some research on how is your color properly representing you. And we also did not get into rebrand versus refresh. So a lot of people hear me talk and they're like, oh my gosh, my logo is terrible. I have to redo everything. I'm not getting the people I want. And that is the wrong answer. Like always look for ways that you can refresh your existing brand. Maybe script no longer makes sense for you. So you just switch that out and your colors remain the same. Or maybe you're realizing the colors aren't working for you and you can make a small color change. And that's where you're going to see that different category of inquiries start coming in just from those little tiny changes that maybe are more in line with the services and passion that you have.
Kaleigh, if you do make a rebrand, like, should you announce it to people, or like, do you need to do like a whole like launching of it and announcement of it, or do you think like slowly trickle it in? Like, what's the best way to?
Annie, are you trying to decide if you should have a party for your website?
Asking for a friend.
I mean, I definitely think, creating a launch is absolutely something that should be celebrated. So if, let's say, it's timely to a year anniversary or something like that where you can wrap around it, I definitely would recommend that. There are several pros that I've seen, let's say in the last 10 years, and they have relaunched their brand 5 different times. And now it's like, maybe you don't know who you are.
Yeah. Maybe
so
schizophrenia.
Yes. So I think if you're doing a brand refresh, let's say you're just changing a color or just changing a single font that feels more in line with who you are, I would probably not make a big deal out of it. But if you
Guys, I'm using a new font.
Yeah, but if you're using a new font, I would honestly educate the public to say, like, this is the new us and this is why. We're so proud that our new brand represents these core values that we're in line with. And so it's less about, look at our pretty new logo, but an opportunity to share who you are, what kind of services you want to provide, and really be front of mind for, potential couples, but also the peers in your industry.
Oh, I like that. Hey, Kaleigh, you were saying something about some free resources.
Yes. So
Tell us, we like free.
We like free.
So if you go to KaleighWiese.com, KaleighWiese.com, I have a basic color theory guide. That's a PDF that shows how to select the right colors for you. It kind of shows how you can build a brand with color. So let's say you have all of these different personality types and you're just really dynamic. It will show what colors you should incorporate as your primary and your secondary colors. And then I also do have a PDF that you can download that helps you do a self-audit. So it kind of walks you through the steps of what to look for, how to produce your spreadsheet. And there's many more things to come. I'm getting creative with, now that I'm not able to work and talk face to face with many pros across our country. I'll be having some new things that I can provide as resources coming soon.
That's awesome. We'll link to all of that in the show notes so people can get those
I find
free
that whole
downloads and
color
also
thing
follow you.
fascinating. So I'm excited to check that out.
And to scratch the surface on it, fonts are the exact same thing. And Annie, you probably know as well. Like,
I love me a font.
Yes.
I judge a movie. Like, I'm such a fonty where if I'm like watching a movie and like their opening sequence has a bad font, I shut it off.
It's like, I'm not gonna like it. It's just I get judgy too.
I will judge you on your fonts.
But really, I think fonts are a whole nother category that I could help anyone with. If you're currently using a script and you're getting a lot of weddings that are a little stiff and a little formal and a little indoor ballroom, you're probably not representing yourself in a way that's going to show maybe that you are a more organic or more DIY or more crafty event pro. And so fonts can be just as impactful as color. So between fonts and colors, like, that's really where the magic happens.
That's awesome. And okay, Kaleigh, if someone thinks that they need a third party audit, like someone like you to come in and like take a look at your stuff, like how do they find someone like you, other than we're just going to link to your website, but like what's some kind of tips of who might be good to do that? And then tell us a little bit about the people that you work with, like someone who might be a good fit for you.
For sure. So what you're looking for is a brand strategist. So you can probably do a Google search or ask around for a brand strategist. You want to make sure that you ask them questions about their knowledge on color theory and font psychology, as well as like what is their, experience, or who have they worked with. I do think there's a handful of people out there who are doing an excellent job. With my clients, I definitely kind of stick to creative industries specifically, mostly wedding. And so I have seen hundreds and hundreds of websites. So for me, I'm a great resource for really putting together like an assessment form. So I have, it takes about an hour and a half that pros will fill out. It really talks about like what they're passionate about, who's their ideal couple. And then I'm able to brain dump all that into my brain to say, okay, here's where you're going wrong. Here's where the holes are. And then we spend, time on the phone going through page by page of all of their different online platforms and even some of the print materials or business cards to make sure that everything that they've outlined in their assessment form is on track with how they're putting themselves out there.
Yeah, that's really great. Well, yeah, that's great. We'll link to all of those things so people can find you. This has been like a lot of great information. And now that we are on a coronavirus hiatus,
I'm going to go change my
no excuse.
Facebook hero right now. Like that's
same.
I'm doing it right now.
Same. Kaleigh, thank you so much
You're welcome.
for joining us. This has been a lot of fun. We will keep track with where you are since we know you are not traveling everywhere.
Yeah.
You'll be a little bit easier to find these days.
I am around, but I think it's been so wonderful, like things like this and podcasts, keeping us all connected to each other because we are all in this together. That is for sure.
It's true. True statement.